So today we are going to be talking about getting your students to write more. I would love it if you would drop me a comment and let me know, like, what's your biggest frustration when it comes to getting your students to write more? What do you like, if I had the magic wand that came into your classroom, like, what change would you like to see when it came to those reluctant writers? I have, as my notes fall, I have 20 different tips for you today. 20. And that's not it. On top of that, I have activities that I'm going to then share with you that will then help with the different tips. So like I said, we're going to be together for a little while longer than normal today. So grab your piece of paper to take notes, okay? Number one tip for getting students to write more is to build writing stamina from day one. So day one of school, you are learning students' names and you are making time for writing. We need to make sure that students understand that writing is a priority in our life and it's not just something that we find time for when we can and that gets pushed on the wayside, right? And I know a lot of you, when you put in the comments, when I asked you for your biggest frustration, you said time. Think about what message that's sending to our writers, right? Specifically, our reluctant writers. They're reluctant already, even when we have time. So if we are saying that writing isn't a priority and we're pushing it off, then that's sending an even bigger message to them. So we have to make sure that we're sending the positive message of writing is a priority. We're going to do it every day because that's how we get better. And we're going to practice. And by doing this from day one, we're building their stamina. And stamina is something that reluctant writers don't have. So just like we do with reading, I know you all out there probably do at the very beginning of the year where you have to build up their independent reading stamina. You got to do the same thing with writing. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be writing independently, quietly, by themselves, no talking every single day. But that just means every day there needs to be a substantial amount of time for writing, for them to actually write, not just the lesson on your end, but for them to physically be doing the writing as well. Okay. So some ways that you can do that. Obviously, you can have some free writing journals. Let the kids write whatever they want. Have a special journal that they can get out and write in. Have a prompt jar. Do some daily quick writes. I know there's a lot of different resources out there of daily quick writes, but do something every day that gets students writing, because the end all is the message that we're sending to students that writing is a priority. And just like we tell them for reading, practice makes perfect, right? We read to get better. We got to do the same for writing. We have to write every single day. And so when your reluctant writers get that message and they hear that loud and clear, they're going to know it's okay that I'm not very good now, but my teacher is telling me that the better and the more that I write, the better I'm going to be. And when they know and feel that message in their heart, they're going to push through a lot more barriers than they would if they're getting a different message from you, as meaning, oh, we don't have time for writing today because reading took too long, or we don't have to write time for writing today because it's pretty outside and we're going to go out for extra recess. Just kind of think about the message you're sending there. So that's tip number one. Okay. What do you do in your classroom to help build writing stamina? Drop me a comment below and let me know, because we're in this together, and you have lots of great ideas too. And I want everyone to learn from everyone, not just me. So please, please, please do me a favor and drop me a comment and let me know, what do you do on a daily basis to help build writing stamina from day one? All right. Tip number two is to set goals with your students. I'm a big goal setter, huge, huge, huge goal setter when it comes to everything. Um, and you can do this in a lot of different ways. Um, Obviously, each student, as far as their areas of strength and weakness, they're all going to be different. So if you are constantly talking with your students about their writing, you're able to set goals with them, and then they know what to focus on when they write. A lot of times students are a little bit lost as to not necessarily what they're supposed to be doing, but more so like what am I supposed to be focusing on? Yes, I know maybe I'm writing a fictional passage or I'm writing a nonfiction paragraph about whatever. They may understand that, but in their writing, what focus are you giving them? What little carrot are you putting over their little noses to then push them to be able to accomplish or complete? If you can give them a writing goal, specifically an individualized writing goal that maybe you set with them during a conference or through your note taking when you were going through and walking around and reading over the shoulder. It doesn't have to be some big elaborate thing, but if you can jot down on a post-it note or write in the corner of their paper a little writing goal that you have for them, that they can then focus on, that's going to motivate them to complete that goal, and then obviously please them, please themselves, grow as a writer, etc. So if you aren't setting goals in writing, that would definitely be something that I would try to focus on, because it helps keep students focused and it keeps students motivated as well. And goals can be very, very small, like add more adjectives. I want to see more adjectives in your writing, and do a quick little mini lesson on adjectives, and there's your goal. Boom. And maybe you even monetize that. I want to see at least 7 adjectives in your paragraph. Can you give me 7? And so, give it more black and white if they need be. But, as long as you have a goal set in place that's going to be that carrot in front of them, then they're going to work for that. They're going to work to meet that goal that you and the student set together, because it's a personalized, it's meaningful to them. Maybe even they help set the goal. But that's going to be very, very, very helpful. All right, let's see. Samar says she uses daily writing prompts. Yes. Not daily, but weekly. We write appreciation notes to each other. Oh my gosh, Michelle, that's amazing. Love that. Communication journals, picture prompts. Yes, see, you're experts. We're all experts. We just don't know it. All right, so setting goals. Make sure that's happening. All right, tip number 3. This is a big one, is to keep your focus off of decoding. So writing should and shouldn't be about getting everything right when it comes to spelling and decoding words and getting it all down. And the more pressure that students feel to get it right the first time and get frustrated on spelling words and this and that, the less likely that they are to be focused on the actual writing process. Writing is about the ideas. Okay, writing is about expression, and we need to communicate that with them. We need to make sure they know that. And so, some ways you can do that is, one, black and white verbally tell them that it's okay not to be perfect, and that I am more interested in what you have to say than how it looks, right? I always do the experiment with my students, where I have like 2 different writing pieces of paper. And what I will do is I will read them both out loud. They don't get to see them, but I will read them both out loud, right? And then I will show them to them like under the document camera. So then we talk about like, how does each piece of writing sound and which one's better and why? And then we look at them and talk about which one looks better and why. And then we then compare the two. So what I do this on purpose is the one that is best, like is great expressive writing, has great strong voice, and is perfect writing structure and really hooks the reader, and we're all invested in it, right? That one looks horrible. Words are misspelled. There's no capitalization or punctuation and this and that. But I want them to know that when it comes to writing, we'll get the conventions down, right? We can work on that. That right there, that's black and white. That's going to come through practice, right? And repetition. What I want my writers to know is that the most important thing they can give me is their thoughts and expressions and their opinions and all of that down on paper, because that's where good writing comes from. And so if I let them know that decoding is not my focus, and I tell them that, and we reiterate that in classroom, that they're going to be more confident in what they're writing down. Some other things that you can try when it comes to this, you can do an an anchor chart, I guess, or even just your dry erase board up front or wherever you can put this. But do one of the T-chart where it's you try, I try. And so during your writing time, when you're conferencing with students and students are independently writing, they have a word that they don't know how to write or decode, then they quietly can come up to the front board. And on the you try side, they try writing the word and they quietly go back to their seat and keep writing. Then when you get a split second, you can go up to the board and you write it on the I try side and you write it correctly. And the student can go back into their writing. Maybe they've, written 5 more sentences since then. They can go back into their writing, change that word, and keep going. So it's completely uninterrupted process that you obviously have to train your students how to do. But again, it eliminates that stuck feeling. I don't know how to write this word. I'm going to get frustrated. I'm going to shut down. And instead of focusing on writing my story, I'm now focusing on decoding and getting frustrated. So instead, they go up, they quickly write the word the best way they think it's decoded or spelled or whatever. And then when you get a split second, you go up and write it in between conferences. And you didn't lose any time, and the student really didn't lose any time either. You can also try personalized word lists. So a lot of times I'll have a piece of paper or 2 or 3 in the back of a student's writing folder, and it's kind of A to Z, so we can alphabetize the words. But then as I'm conferencing with students, I may pick 1 or 2 words that I think the student should know how to spell, or that we can practice decoding together. We'll decode them real quick, and then they add those into their personalized word lists. And that way, if they then write another time and they come across that word or they want to write that word, they can grab out their personalized word list. They can flip to that page where, maybe it was the word together. So they flip to the T, they see the word together because they know that's the word we did, and then they can write it correctly. And it's getting them through those hiccups of not knowing how to spell, pushing past being frustrated, and really being able to focus on writing, okay? So keep the focus off decoding. Number 4, it is all about connections, okay? And I like to relate this one when I'm talking with my teachers. I like to relate this one when it comes to reading. If you think about your students and when it comes to reading, are they going to be more excited and motivated to read something that they are connected to or that they're not connected to, okay? Obviously, we know the answer to that. So same thing happens when it comes to writing. If your students are not connected in any way, shape, or form to the content or to the audience in which they're writing to, they're not going to be motivated to write. I wouldn't be motivated to write, right? Right. Let's see how many times I can say the word right today. So when you're picking writing prompts, when you're picking essay topics, when you're picking writing projects, whatever it is, keep your students' interest in mind, okay? And I'm going to kind of skip up to another tip, and I'll have to repeat myself, but I think that was a good time to say it. Choice is fantastic. If we're working on persuasive writing, does it really matter if they're persuading about, I don't know, why bringing lunch from home is better than cafeteria lunch, or whether we should be wearing school uniforms or not, or whatever the topic is. Who cares about the topic? Let them pick the topic. The purpose of my unit is that we understand how to write persuasive paragraphs. So it doesn't matter what topic it is. Let them choose that. So that brings back to what's written right here. It's all about the connections. So if I'm invested in the topic, if I'm invested in my audience that I'm writing to, I am going to be more motivated. So really reflect and look deeply upon all the assignments that you're giving your students and see whether or not that could be a cause of some of the reluctantness that we have in our writers, okay? All right, so let's go on to number 5. Number 5, make it fun. So there are lots of ways out there. I mean, you could Google how to make writing fun and sit there for hours upon hours reading articles and blog posts, okay? It's just about being intentional about it, right? We all know that we need to make writing fun, but the big question is how? And can I make it a priority enough to then make it fun. So I've put in the description of our live video, by the way. I did put in some resources that I have. I don't have many writing resources in my store. And I meant to say this at the very beginning of the video. I am not an expert in writing. Writing was always the topic when I was teaching that I just did not feel strong enough to teach. And I know many teachers feel that way. But the thing that clicked for me was I had to learn how to see myself as a writer to then be able to teach writing more confidently. So I practice my own writing. I write stories. I write blog posts. I write anything I possibly can. I journal write, whatever. The more I write, the more confident I feel. And so that's kind of where that click came from of, being more confident and getting it out there. Um, but anyways, I put some resources in the description of the video so you can click on those. But one of them, and I think it's the very first one, they're called Level Up Writing Challenges, and they're kind of like escape room type feel resources. And there's one for every writing genre, and they're amazing. And they were designed for this right here. Make it fun. Writing doesn't have to be this boring inside of the box routine that we get ourselves into. And we need to find ways to kind of break out of that mold. So definitely check those out if you're looking for something just completely outside the box to teach writing, because I highly, highly, highly encourage them. And if you have questions about them, let me know. But I've got 5 other ideas too, or 4 more ideas, excuse me, for making it fun. 1, try writing critiques. Students love to write critiques. You can do them on movies. You can do them on food. You can show like some of those Pixar short films or whatever where they actually get to watch the movie in class and then write a critique about it. You could have food tastings and bring in the food. Obviously, think about allergies and get things approved because I don't want to be the one, who gets in trouble here. But the students love writing critiques. And so it's a great little brain break when it comes to writing. It's a different type of writing, and students love to give their opinion on something when they know their opinion is completely validated. So that's a fun one. Interviews are another one. Let students conduct interviews with people around your school building, with other students at home, and then write about them. They love to be able to express the conversation that they had with that person. This is a fun one. Sticky note stories. I love this, and my students love this. It takes a tiny little bit of prep because you have to write out all the sticky notes, but once you do it 1 or 2 times, your students can help with it. So basically what you do is on a whole bunch of sticky notes, you will write out a whole bunch of characters, you will write out a whole bunch of settings, you write out like maybe some plot twists or things like that, and then you either can color code them and put them all over your front board, or you can sort them. So like all the character post-it notes are here, all the setting post-it notes are here, etc. And then like 5 at a time, send your students up and they have to get 1 of each post-it note, take them to their desk, and they have to write a story based on that. So it's just a different way to get them to write. Obviously, you can do this with different genres. Think about the different characteristics of each genre and then have a post-it note section for each of the characteristics. So it really can be used in more than just your typical fictional type genre. But sticky note stories are fun. And then the last one too, would you rather? Would you rather? It's a fun little game to play, but hello, that turns into a fantastic writing prompt. Would you rather, I don't know, eat liver or something else that's disgusting? I can't even think of disgusting things right now, and that's a good thing, I guess. But think about like what your students would do if they were writing about that, like how passionate they would be. Like, I would not rather do this, I'd rather do this, and explain reasons why. Again, it's another little random brain break type writing, but it's going to motivate them to write. And the more that they see that, oh, I do have the capability to write a lot, especially when I'm motivated, that means I just need to figure out what I'm really motivated about and then write about those things. And they're going to find those connections. So even though it's silly little activities, like critiquing movies and, would you rather games, students are going to see the connection. They're going to see that I can write 2 paragraphs about this. I can then write 2 paragraphs about this because I'm also passionate about it as well. So it may seem silly, but the connections are there, especially if you help make those connections. All right, we are on number 6. Connect writing to other subject areas. This is a big one. A lot of times, and I mentioned this before, we get stuck inside this box, right? This box of, writing has to look this way. It has to be at this time during the day, and it has to, feel this, and we have to have this many minutes of independent writing. People, if the kids are writing, it's writing time. It doesn't matter if it's in science. It doesn't matter if it's in health. If it doesn't matter if it's in reading. Okay, writing time can be in your other subject areas. Okay, you just have to make sure that you're being very clear about the fact that you're practicing writing. And so you can be intentional about merging these areas together and finding ways to then motivate. Like if your kids love science, then do writing during science. Okay, if your kids love social studies, do writing during social studies. Find the things that your kids love, and that's when you do writing. Okay, you can also do writing at the normal time too. If you want to double up, or you take the normal writing block out if you're going to do it in science this week, but just express that to them. Tell them, boys and girls, since we're studying weather this week and you all love weather, guess what we're going to do? We're going to do writing during science. We're going to write about weather, and we're going to write, nonfiction essays, and we're going to write persuasive paragraphs about why you should have first aid kits in your house when it comes to weather. And we're going to write about, all the different things that have to do with science. Write about them. And then you can do all the things that you want to do in writing with the conferencing and the goal setting and, making sure they understand the genres of writing and the stuff and the characteristics of writing. You can do that in science, right? And you're hitting both standards. So try to break down that mold of what writing needs to look like and start merging it into the areas in which your students are already motivated. Number 7 is to use sentence frames. This is a big one for your reluctant writers because a lot of times reluctant writers sit there and they have 2 things happening. They either have nothing going on up here, they don't really know how to start, or the other type of reluctant writer, which honestly has been me many times, I have so much going on up here, I don't even know how to start. I've got this idea and that idea, and I really want to say this, but then I like this one too. And how do I even start? So you can combat both types of reluctant writers by giving them sentence frames, okay? And I encourage you to do this with every single writing prompt and lesson that you do. Make it a norm. Make it an absolute norm in your classroom that you are going to give them sentence frames, okay? So if you're doing persuasive writing, give them 2 or 3 choices on how they could start that prompt for that persuasive essay. Go, okay? They have choice, right? And you're giving them a sentence and how to start it off with. Boom. That should get their little brains going, right? And that way you can say, at least just start the sentence. Start, write the words that I've given you, and it'll be magic. You'll keep writing. And they really do. It happens. Because again, they're either 2 things are happening. They have no idea even how to start, or they have too many ideas on how to start. So by giving them like 2 or 3 sentence frames, I wouldn't give them any more, because then they're going to sit there and go, okay, well, which one do I start with? 2 or 3, let them choose, and kind of get the little motor running, right? It kind of gets them going, and they work. And it's something that I highly, highly encourage you to do for every single time. Give them a choice, use sentence stems, sentence frames, same thing, and let them use those to start their writing, okay? All right. All right. Glad to see this. Some of this is being helpful. Good, good, good. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so we are on number 8. Number 8 is a very simple idea, but it's one that I use for my extremely reluctant writers. Okay, some writers are very black and white. Okay, some of our more reluctant writers are very, very black and white. They need to know when can they stop writing. Okay, and I want to honor that because there becomes a breaking point in all writers. There comes a breaking point in all readers, right? Where there's too much is just too much, and I'm going to get frustrated. So what I like to do for those students, and this is in extreme circumstances, but I give them a line goal. And I don't mean like I want you to write 5 lines or 5 sentences. What I mean is I will physically draw a line on their paper. You are allowed to stop when you get to here. That way it's not number of sentences, but it's more of like I can keep writing. So it's more of a stamina, like mentality visual thing rather than them sitting there counting sentences. Because what I have found is, because I've been guilty of the other one, when you say to your reluctant writers, I want you to write at least 6 sentences for me, Johnny. Can you give me 6 sentences, pretty please? And then their 6 sentences they'll give them to you. They won't be pretty, right? They won't be pretty. They're going to be very boring, not very thought provoking. They're just not going to be his best work. But if you can say, hey, Johnny, look here, I'm going to draw a line on your paper, right? You're going to write as best as you can until you get to this line or beyond. If you can go further than that, you bring your paper right up to me and I want to see it. I'm going to be the first one to read it. I can't wait. Can't wait. Let's see how far you can get. But if you get to this line, then you can wrap up your writing and stop. Their writing is actually going to be stronger writing. They're going to care more about the holistic story and the expression and the assignment that you've given them than counting sentences. So, does it get the same job done? Yup, sure does. But it's a different tactic and it actually helps them focus more on writing than it does on, like, I wrote 1 sentence. I wrote 2 sentences. Than that kind of thing. So, again, only use that in extreme circumstances, but it works. It really does. All right, number 9. Another great strategy for your reluctant writers. Use voice technology. This is something that I was kind of against for a while, especially when technology started coming out. I had all the iPods in my classroom. Yes, I said iPods. And we're talking the big ones, the big mamma jammas, the big thick ones. Back when they came out, I was piloting those in the classroom, and all these ideas were flowing out about how to use them, and this was one of them. Use voice technology to allow students to write. That's not writing. No, that's cheating. They just have to sit there and talk. Psh, that's cheating. No, it's not. It's not. It's a fantastic idea. Again, I would use it only for my extreme reluctant writers. But the point of the matter is, your writers are reluctant because they think they don't know what to say. They don't know what to think. They don't know what to write down. So that's a barrier that we have to get past with them. This technology will do that. So if you can let them speak and say their story, or verbally write their essay, or verbally brainstorm, or whatever you want to use the technology for, and let them do that, guess what? You have evidence that they can write a few paragraphs, that they can write a story. And so they're kind of combating their own barrier for you. It's not you anymore sitting there going, yes, you can, yes, you can, yes, you can. It's you sitting there go, you just did it. You did it. You wrote a story. That's a fantastic story. Let's print that. They did it, and the technology helped you. And so I highly encourage you to do this. Let the whole class do it every now and then. That's a great little motivator, too, for everyone. But for your reluctant writers who just don't know what to say, let them speak. Let them talk. Print it out, and then you can go back through, and then they can use that and cut out sentences that don't make sense, because if they're just kind of mumbling, or they can edit their own writing that way. It's a fantastic strategy. Absolutely fantastic. All right, we are on number 10 of 20. Woo, people. This is fantastic. Okay, 10 of 20. Number 10. Number 10 is to be very specific with your directions. And so for your reluctant writers, they need this more than your motivated writers will. Your motivated writers will, they can take your more vague directions and run with it. But your reluctant writers, if you say something, here's an example most teachers use. Can you go back and add more detail to that, please? Okay, sure. That's a very, very vague set of directions. But instead, if we're very specific from the get-go, from the directions we actually give the whole class, we can be more specific, then we're going to be able to see more specific type of progress in our students. So instead of saying things like, can you add more detail? You could say things like, we're going to focus on adding adjectives to our writing today. I want to see if everyone can add 5 adjectives to their writing. Or maybe you're working on types of sentence and you say, I want you all to make sure you have one of each of the 4 types of sentences in your writing today. So you can almost merge grammar practice and focus in on specific writing instruction and directions. So you're kind of killing a few birds with like one awesome stone here. And then when you're conferencing with students, the same thing. You don't want to confer with a student, read their writing and say, can you go back and add a few more details? You want to be very specific. What kind of details do you want them to add? What changes, what specific changes do you want to see in their writing? The more specific you are, the more your reluctant writers are going to understand, and then the more they're actually going to be able to go back and do it rather than going, I'm adding more detail. I don't have any more detail. Rather than, okay, she wants, all 4 types of sentences. I have only 2. I need to make sure I add a question and an exclamatory sentence. Boom! I know how to do this, right? I have very, very specific ideas on what to do. Number 11, conduct writing conferences. So, writing conferences are highly, highly, highly encouraged, especially for your reluctant writers. I've been in a lot of classrooms as a coach, and I've seen a lot of writing lessons. And teachers feel that they don't have time to conduct writing conferences. Time is the big thing, and I know you all mentioned that already. But what happens is they need those teachers who feel that way. What needs to happen is they need to lessen the amount of talk time that they are giving to their students and increase the amount of writing time that they are giving to their students. If you're spending your 20-minute writing block and you're talking for 10 minutes, you just took away 50% of their writing time. So if you can take your talk time in your mini lesson down to like 5 minutes, you've just increased it by 25%. I think I did the math right. You just increased it by 25%, and now you have more time to actually do conferences. So the way I did conferences was like the most simple way in the entire world. Literally, I would take a piece of paper and I would, on PowerPoint or Word, if I had 25 students, I would have 25 boxes, right? At the top, I would write what week it was, and I would have the names of my students in each box. By the end of the week, my goal was for this page to be filled. I would have this on my clipboard, and I walk around, and if I need to go up to Johnny that day because Johnny seems just a little off, then I would confer with Johnny that day. And I would kneel next to him. I'd have him read his writing to me. We would identify a success. We would identify a change that we want to make or a goal setting. Remember we talked about that already? We would write that goal down. I would jot down the success and the goal in his little box, right? And I'd move on. It's that simple. Like, it was that simple. It was me walking around and talking to my writers. I did not have them come to me, okay, because that took too long. I want to go walk around to them, kneel down, and do those steps, and it's super, super quick. But for your reluctant writers, connecting with you on their writing is extremely important. They need to hear every week for every piece of writing that they're doing well at certain things, and they need that specific feedback. And by doing that, they're able to see and hear their own growth over time. And then it also allows you to document their growth over time as well. So writing conferences are highly, highly, highly encouraged. All right. All right. Number 12. My voice is starting to go icky. Number 12 is a fun one. Create a fun writing space. All right. One of my favorite parts of my classroom was my writing area. And so it had a binder full of fun writing paper. So like, the writing paper you can find for free. But it had like the cute borders and like the piece of clip art here. Things that they could use for their final drafts. I had a whole binder full of those. I had colorful paper. I had stickers, all the different kinds of writing pens and crayons for them to decorate. I had like writing posters over there, like anchor charts and reminders. There'd be dictionaries over there, just like a one-stop shop place for writing support. And it was a place that I encouraged my students to go with some restrictions and stuff. Obviously, like, 3 students in the writing center at one time, don't stay for more than 2 minutes. Just because, everyone's going to flock over there because it's a fun place to be. But make it a fun place to be. Make it to where they want to get to that point where they can publish their writing because they want to use all these really cool tools that you've set out for them, because being a published author is amazing and you want to celebrate that and you want to encourage it. So encourage it by having these awesome things ready to go in your students' hands that they want to use to be those published authors. So create that fun writing space, okay? All right, number 13. Number 13 is a big one. Talk about why they don't like to write. This is a specific conversation that I love to have one-on-one with my reluctant writers. I want to know why they feel they are not a good writer. I want to know why they don't like to write. And I want to empathize with them because guess what? I feel the same way, or I have felt the same way, even as an adult. And that is a story that I need to tell, not just my reluctant writers, but all my writers. So sharing your writing journey as an adult with your kids is really powerful. And then at the beginning of the year or throughout the year, and having these conversations about why don't you like writing and what can we do to change that? What else what's something that you didn't like in the past, but maybe now you like? How did you get from point A to point B? And how can we apply that to writing? What can I do? What feedback do you have for me as the teacher to make writing more fun? Can I do something different? Can I change the way we do writing? What's your favorite thing in the world to learn about? Okay, then let's write about that next week. And maybe then you plan a whole writing unit over that thing just for that one child. You know how special that's going to make them feel that you planned a writing assignment for the whole class just for them, and then let them be the expert on it. But there are so many things we can do for these reluctant writers, but you have to talk to them to know what those things are. So make sure to make a priority to talk with your writers about why they don't like to write, and to also share your journey of how you became a writer. If you consider yourself a writer, maybe you share with your kids that you don't consider yourself a writer yet and you're still on the journey. So they're going to connect with that and they're going to empathize. All right, so number 14. Number 14 is an easy one, but it's one that because of time, we like to skip a lot. Or we don't skip it, we just don't give them ample time. And that's brainstorming. So give your students, especially your reluctant writers, tell them that this is the most important part of the writing process. If they don't brainstorm, their writing is going to suffer because of it. And brainstorming doesn't have to be, I'm sitting there creating a web. Okay? That's not what brainstorming is. Brainstorming is essentially thinking through what you want to write about. So I can do this in a variety of ways. And we need to teach our students that there are a variety of ways and that all of them are acceptable when brainstorming. So that could be talking with a partner. Give them 10 minutes of talk time. I want you all to talk. Here's what we're writing about today. I want you to find at least 3 or 4 partners. And I just want you to talk about your writing. Talk. Let them go. Let them talk. See what difference it makes in their writing. It probably will surprise you. Another thing that you have them do is draw. Let them draw. Give them boxes or give them a blank sheet of paper. And for 5 minutes, I want you to draw what you want to write about. Draw, if you're writing a story, then see if you can draw in sequence the important events, or just draw random images and see which one you resonate to the most. And then that's what you're going to write about. Drawing is very, very powerful tool, especially for our reluctant readers and writers. And so the more that they feel validated, that their ideas are important and that ideas don't just come like that, that's a big one. Reluctant writers feel that they should be ashamed because they don't have an idea right away. Ideas don't come in a split second. Ideas don't come in the blink of an eye. It's okay to spend lots of time generating and creating the best idea you can, because when you get to that awesome idea, then your writing is just going to flow right out of you, right? So validate the process of brainstorming and let them know that this is where we should be spending a lot of time. A lot of time brainstorming, a lot of time drafting, then, good quick edit and revise, and then off to our final product. But if they don't feel validated there, then it's not, they're going to feel a little ashamed because they don't have those ideas lickety split like the other writers do. All right, next one, choice. This is a big one. You're reluctant writers, and I spoke about this early on tip number 4 when we talked about audience, or we talked about making connections. If your students aren't connected to what they're writing about, they're not going to want to write about it, right? If you give me a topic on, I don't know, spiders, and I absolutely hate spiders, despise everything about them. If I see one, I scream and run like the 3-year-old girl I am, right? I'm not going to want to write about them. I have no interest in writing about them. I'd cringe even looking at a book, right? I'm trying to make those connections. But my point is, if I'm not connecting, then I'm not going to want to write. And so what we can do is give our students choice. So choice in everything. If you're doing writing prompts, let's say you're getting ready for standardized testing, right? And you're like, they have to learn how to write to a prompt and they have to do this. That doesn't mean you can't give them a choice on the prompt. They can still have a choice on which prompt they want to do, and which prompt you want them, or which prompt they want to do based on what you gave them. Give them choice. Again, if you're working on a certain type of genre, does it matter what topic underneath that genre that they pick? It doesn't. So give them choice in the matter because it's going to help. All right, number 16. We're almost done with the 20 ideas. Okay, number 16, self-scaffolding. Self-scaffolding is important. And what I mean by that is giving students choice on how they support themselves. So let me back up a little bit more. We teach our students how to organize writing, how to brainstorm in certain ways using graphic organizers. We give them tools on how to edit and revise. But then what we end up doing a lot of times is we force our students to use a certain way of doing things. So maybe you're forcing your students to use a web for brainstorming, or you're forcing your students to use this certain graphic organizer to plan out their persuasive writing. But what we can do, and this happens more, I would say the latter half of the school year, 3/4 of the school year, what we need to do is teach our students how to use one certain type of graphic organizer to help them with writing, and then that then becomes a choice later on. So here, just another example. For brainstorming, you could do a web, you could do a lotus diagram, you could do a blank sheet of paper, you could do comic strips, you could do, voice memos. Voice memos are a fun way to brainstorm. Let them talk to themselves and then play it back. So that's another one. But then what happens is when you're doing a prompt later on in the year, or you're doing whatever you're writing you're doing later on, let them choose what scaffold they want. Let them choose how they want to do it. Okay? So you teach them specific ways up until you have enough, and then from then on out, they get to choose. So that way, when you say, okay, we're going to brainstorm, you may have a group of students choose a web. You may have a group of students choose a Lotus. You may have a group of students choose voice memo. You may have a group of students just use blank sheet of paper. So as long as you're teaching them specifically how to use them and then giving them choice, that's exactly what you need to do. Self-selecting scaffolding. Say that 5 times fast. Next tip, number 18. No, number 17. Write in the language that your students are most comfortable with. This is a great tip clearly for ELL students. ELL students are students who are going to probably end up being your most reluctant writers because they are not only learning how to speak the language and listen and comprehend a language, they're going to have to write in the new language. So a great way to combat this is to let your students who are ELL students write in the language that they're most comfortable with. Now, with the expectation that when they know an English word, phrase, or sentence, they use it. Okay? So it's going to end up turning, and I'm using Spanish just as an example. Clearly, there are lots of other languages that your students speak. But for example, Spanish, it's going to turn into that what they call Spanglish. So their writing might be in 3/4 Spanish and 1/4 English, but it's going to be progress on what they're learning and then writing. They are still meeting your expectations. They're still writing in your genre and the characteristics that you're teaching them, but they're able to get their ideas down and they're able to do more writing because you're allowing them to write in their native language and then applying what they know in English to their writing when they can. And so then you can have a conversation with them about, what it means. You could take it to, support in your school if you need be to have them quickly translate it. You could take a snapshot and text it to them and say, hey, translate this for me tonight if you could. Like, it doesn't take a lot of extra time to get something translated when it comes to your students, but the fact that they're going to feel validated in their native language, they're going to be able to write a lot more. They're going to be able to apply what English that they do know. Instead of feeling forced to be 100% English, you're going to get so much more out of them than you do if you do like full English versus in your native language. So that is absolutely a tip for those reluctant writers who are non-English speakers. All right, tip number 18, ideas over grammar. This is one we talked about, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. But make sure your students understand and know that their ideas are way more important than the grammatical mistakes that they're going to make. No one is perfect. I send emails to you guys all the time. I guarantee you there are grammatical errors in them. No writer is perfect, ever. Find videos of writers that they connect with, like, why is an author not coming to my mind right now? Any author. And find videos of them talking about their writing process and how they have to go back and rewrite and edit and revise and do that 5 different times in order to get the perfect book, right? Mo Willems, I guarantee you, has a video out there about that. But when they can see that true authors go through the same process, they're not going to feel as ashamed about their own process in writing. And let them know that their ideas are way more valuable than the grammar ever will be. All right, number 19, follow the student's lead. This is important. Each one of your writers is an individual. And this, sorry, lost my train of thought. Same goes for readers. Your readers are all on different levels, right? They all have their own strengths and weaknesses. The same thing goes for your writers. So we need to follow their lead. If I'm conferring with a writer, and let's say I have a goal for our writing today to work on sequential writing using transition words, and I can see that this writer is just not there yet, then when I'm conferring with them, I'm not going to push my agenda onto their writing. Instead, I'm going to look at their writing and find that one thing that I know that they need, and that's what we're going to focus on instead. So meet the writers where they are and follow their lead, and they will grow a lot faster than if you're just pushing your own agenda. All right, friends, last one, of course, celebrate. Celebrate everything. Writing is hard. Writing and expressing and learning how to craft. I mean, people pay money for writing. Like in businesses, people pay money. It's called ad copy. And it's hard. It's very, very, very hard to do. So we need to validate that and we need to celebrate every little bit of step that every student took along the way and celebrate often. So finding that priority in your timeline, in your schedule, and making sure that we're celebrating as much as possible. Okay? So I'm going to keep going. I've got lots of different activities. I'm going to go kind of fast. Just drop your comments below and let me know what questions if I don't explain it very well. But there are some teaching tips that I have, and then activities to go with each one that help your reluctant writers write more. Again, this is all about getting them to write more specifically for those writers. Okay, here we go. All right, activity number 1. Teach different types of sentences. So I mentioned this a few times as an example, but this is a great one. And I know this is something we all do as far as like, I've got to teach grammar and I'm going to teach my types of sentences. But this is fantastic for your reluctant writers, okay? If they know that there are different types of sentences out there, not just your, command, exclamatory, interrogative, like those kind of things, but talking about like, simple and compound and complex and those type of things as well. And then you encourage them to use as many different types in their writing as possible. So here are some activities, okay? The first one I call, it's called Juggle It. Juggle, like, juggle. Juggle it. But what you have them do is you give them a topic, let's say cats, and you say go, and you give them a certain time, whether it be a minute, 2 minutes, whatever, and they have to write as much about cats as they can, but every other sentence has to be a different type of sentence. It's a fun warm-up activity, but it gets them to understand how writing isn't just all statements. It's a conversation between the writer and the reader. And to make it that conversation, there has to be some ups and downs in the different types of sentences that we have. So for Juggle It, I'll say, boys and girls, the Super Bowl was this weekend. We're going to do a Juggle It on the Super Bowl. And so I'll say go, and in 2 minutes, they have to write as much as they can about the Super Bowl. Did you watch the Super Bowl? The Super Bowl was fantastic. The da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Why do they do this? And just every single sentence has to be a different type of sentence. And so it shows them that, that more conversational type writing, which then they can take into all the other genres. And it's a fantastic activity. Another activity for different types of sentences is something I call conversensation. Conversensation. It's like the word conversation and sensation kind of put together. Conversensation. But what you do is have the students practice discussing using the different types of sentences. So again, it's very much like Juggle It, except it does not involve writing at all. It's about a conversation. And so you can give your students a topic, give your students a partner, or even put them into groups, and they have to then discuss using the different types of sentences. And you can do this two ways. You can do it like Juggle It, where every type of sentence each person says is different. So like if I say a question, then the next person has to say a statement, and the next person has to say, the command and exclamatory and so on and so forth. Or you could do this where everyone has to talk only in questions for 30 seconds. And then you switch it to statements, and then you switch it to, it's kind of like whose line is it anyway? It's a really fun, hard game. But again, it gets them that awareness of, I can write and I should be writing with different types of sentences. So Juggle It and Conversensation are two awesome activities. Okay. Next one, Stretch It with questions. So getting your writers to stretch their sentences by answering questions. So that's a great activity for them to practice, and then they apply what they know from these activities that I'm about to tell you into their writing. So pass the sentence is a great one. It's an easy one to do whole class. So you write a sentence or like a 3-word sentence on an index card, and then each student has to expand it by adding 1 word. And so they add a word, and then they pass it. And the next student has to add another word, and they pass it. And they add another word, and then so you pass it, let's say 7 times, and then the last person who has the card, you take turns standing up, and they read what was there that you gave them, and then what the final sentence ended up being. And you can do this by then shouting out questions. So every time you pass, say, a question where like who, and they have to add something into that sentence that answers the word who. And then they pass it again, and you say when, where, how, why. And for each one, they have to add a word based on the question that you answered. So it can get tricky, and it's actually even harder for advanced writers too, because they have to really think about sentence structure, which is what you want them to do, because then that helps them with sentence structure when they're writing on their own. So pass the sentence is super fun. And then the other activity for Stretch It with questions is color-coded sentences. So giving students a full sentence that's already crafted, and having them go through and color code each word or section based on the different 5W questions. So you give them a full sentence and you say, okay, who? And they color code the who. And then you say when, they color code the when. Where, why, how. And so they see that all of these questions are then answered in this one very well crafted sentence. And so you can do this, again, on sentence strips and let them color. You could type up a whole bunch of sentences randomly on a piece of paper and print it. And then there's your writing lesson for the day or writing center. So there's a lot of fun activities you could do there too. But again, the focus is stretching those sentences by using questions. So pass the sentence and color-coded sentences are both fun. All right, another thing that you want to make sure you're doing is teaching your students the pieces of paragraphs. What are all the different parts of a paragraph? I know you do that already, right? Right. Okay. But here's some fun activities that you can try with it. So when it comes to topic and details, getting your students to understand that, or to staying on topic. I think someone mentioned staying on topic is very hard. This is a great little activity or center that you can create to get them to learn to stay on topic. So you give them a topic, almost like a puzzle, but basically you give them a topic, and then there's a whole bunch of other like sentence strips with sentences. They have to pick out the 3 best sentences that then match that topic. So what you would do then is you would want to have like 3 or 4 topics and then like 10 or 12 different sentences, and they have to pair them all up. And you can make it even harder by making the topics somewhat similar to each other. So maybe everything is about dogs, but one topic is like service dogs, and then one topic is, taking care of, baby puppies, and then another one is all about, I don't know, the life cycle stages of a dog. And so those are the 3 topics, and then they have to read through all these sentences and figure out these 3 go with this one, these 3 go with this one. And yes, this is almost like a main idea detail type thing, but it works for writing as well, okay? And it works for them understanding the body of a paragraph and understanding how when in a body of a paragraph, all of my details need to be cohesive, okay? Another activity is paragraph sorting. This is one that I actually have linked in the description of the video. But all it is understanding that a paragraph has to have these parts. Has to have your topic, has to have your body, has to have your closing, kind of sandwiched together all pretty. So what you do then is you have examples of paragraphs that are not correct, and you sort them. This is not a paragraph. This is a paragraph. And it's a sorting kind of activity. And then for each one that you say is not a paragraph, have your students explain why it's not. What's missing? It doesn't have a topic. It doesn't have a closing. It doesn't have 3 complete details. You know what I mean? They're understanding all the pieces of a paragraph by reading and analyzing paragraphs rather than always having to write them. So I do have that activity linked in the description that you can grab. And then the other one is color-coded paragraphs. Just like the one I mentioned before, have a paragraph written out and have them color code. Topic sentences are always green, your details are always in yellow, and your closing is in red. Again, writing doesn't always have to be about I'm physically writing. If you're trying to really teach the craft of it, sometimes it's great to analyze writing to understand it as well. So you could do that with color coding. Real world writing is really great too, and this is great to have in your writing station or celebration area that we talked about earlier, your writing space. But let them do real world writing, thank you notes, invitations, make lists of things, write to a pen pal, write friendly letters. But incorporate the fact that we write every day in our life. Have them craft an email, and actually send it to someone. So the more you can do that real world writing and then apply what you're learning in writing to that, then they're going to see like, wow, I do actually have to learn this stuff. 7-up sentences, if you haven't heard of those are fantastic for reluctant writers because it gives them that black and white. Basically, 7-up sentences are sentences with 7 or more words. So it pushes them to write more than just those 3 or 4 word sentences that a lot of time our reluctant writers already are doing. And so if you do this, if you want to use 7-up sentences, definitely make sure that you make this not only an expectation, but that it's one that you are consistent about and that it's one that you model. Model. Don't just slap randomly onto your students and say, oh, by the way, starting today, I want everyone to have 7-up sentences. Make it a classroom expectation that, 3/4, if not more, of your writing should be 7-up work. So it's just a great way to verbalize that, But again, it can't just be something you slap onto them. It's got to be a full expectation that you actually model and embrace for your students from the get-go. Using photo and prop writing. I know somebody mentioned in the comments below that photos are great. Photo prompts are fantastic. They're great like writing warm-ups too, or writing centers. But prop writing is fun as well. I actually have an activity that I linked that's all about teaching voice using hats. So different hats, like a Santa hat, a construction hat, a cowboy hat, a baseball hat, a grandma hat, a beret, and then how that could change the voice in our writing. And so you can grab that activity too if you want. But props are super fun to really motivate those reluctant writers. Give every single student a random prop out of your desk. Just go through your desk and find all of the random things that you have. Like, I have penguin paper clips. Like, put that on a student's desk and see what they can do with it. You know what I mean? It's just fun and different, and props make it tangible and kind of break that out of the box thinking. And the final activity, guys, I breezed through these. The final activity is called Sage and Scribe. Sage and Scribe is fantastic, and it's an activity that you can use even in other subject areas when you're incorporating writing. But basically, what it is you're going to pair up two people. One's going to be the sage, one's going to be the scribe. The sage is the talker, the scribe is the writer. So let's say you want to practice, doing a specific writing prompt, but you want to use the sage and scribe tactic to it. So you pair them up, give the scribe the paper. They have to write what the sage is saying. So the sage is the one doing the talking. The scribe has to write what they say. And then you can flip it. And so you can pair, a reluctant writer maybe with a more advanced writer. And so they're feeding off of each other. You can do two reluctant writers together. That way they're, feeling a little bit more connected to the fact that there's somebody else kind of, the same stage of writing that they are. But there's a lot of different ways you can do that. But letting students listen to each other kind of talk through that writing, and somebody else is kind of writing that down for them, is a great activity. And then again, they flip, and students love Sage and Scribe. So I need a big glass of water, friends. Oh my goodness. So I cannot believe that I have been talking for an hour and 15 minutes. I hope that you don't hate me forever. My lives are usually not this long. But I had so much that I wanted to say, and I knew you all wanted this live so bad. And so I hope you love it. If you have questions, please, please, please drop them below. I'm not going to delete the video, so you'll be able to watch this and rewatch this if you want in the group always. So thank you so much for joining. I hope it was helpful. Again, not everything is going to be groundbreaking to you because we're all at different points in our career and understanding of teaching writing. Again, I'm not an expert, so I'm only telling you and teaching you what I do know works for students. But take what you can from our teaching today and apply it to your classroom and let me know how it goes. So thank you so much for everything. You are all amazing. And yeah, that's that. Make sure to join me tonight at 8:30 for another Facebook Live all about effective mini lessons. So I'll see you on my regular Facebook page for that one. So thank you so much. I appreciate it for sticking with me, especially this long. Anyways, you are all amazing. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.